Good morning. How you doing? It's Phil Thatch, and it is, I believe, June the 2nd today, and it is raining, and I'm out here in the back porch blind. I've got my 180 to 600 millimeter Nikon Z series super telephoto zoom lens, which just last night, thanks to Adrian Alford, I updated my firmware in it to version 1.01, and I'm using my old Nikon Z6 on the tripod here with the K&F Concept gimbal head, and I'm going to hopefully see some birds this morning. It's raining pretty good right now. I've got a Walmart bag, homemade cover covering up my lens to keep it a little bit drier, and hopefully soon in the next hour or so the rain's going to stop and I'll already be out here and ready to rock and roll. So I'll check back in with you if I see anything. Starting to get kind of desperate. I actually took a photograph of a fly that landed on one of my perches out here in this rain. Here's the first picture of the day, and it's a house fly. So the front of the blind currently, as I have it set up, is exactly 10 feet from this perch. And this is heavily cropped, 600 millimeters, 1/200th of a second of a fly on one of my perches there in the backyard, ISO 1800 and wide open at 6.3. I've been out here about an hour now, and only birds I've seen actually on the back porch have been a couple of house finches, and they were up on the bird feeder, which I don't like to make photos of birds on the bird feeder. But then a male cardinal came and landed on the bird feeder, just absolutely soaked, and I thought he was amazing looking, so I made a couple of pictures of him up on the bird feeder, just drenched. Here's the cardinal up on the bird feeder, and you know I don't like to include bird feeders in my photos, but I was getting desperate. I'd been out there for a little over an hour, and this was the first bird I had really seen other than some house finches that were also on the feeder. This is 350 millimeters 1/200th, wide open at f6, ISO 1400, and just take a look at how saturated, and I'm not talking saturated with color, I'm talking saturated with rain, this bird is. He's molting a pretty good bit. Got a area right here with no feathers, but the rest of it is just because he is soaking wet. But I was happy to see this bird, and I was hopeful that I would see more. The rain has slowed down a little bit. It's still raining, but it's slowed down a little bit, and I've had a little bit more activity. I got cold. I went inside and had to put some long pants on. I was wearing shorts, which is typical attire for June, but it was pretty cold out here in this rain. And the first bird I saw once activity picked up was a female northern cardinal. She was in the Leland cypress tree in the background, and I got a few shots of her. And then there was, I think it might be one of the immature northern mockingbirds came and landed actually on the porch, soaking wet, got a few shots of it, and maybe a male northern cardinal on one of the perches. Oh, speak of the devil, there's the cardinal. This could be my favorite shot of the day. Lots of rain still coming down. Hopefully you can see all this rain. And she's soaking wet, but she makes it look good. I've thought about calling this photograph "The Struggle is Real." I like that her tuft here on the top of her head is poking straight up. A lot of times in the rain they lay it down flat, but she's got it poking straight up, and gosh, her feathers are just disheveled all over the place. But I still think she's beautiful. This shot is 600 millimeters wide open at 6.3, 1/200th of a second, and ISO 1600. And this is in the Leland cypress perch, which is well behind my perches there on the porch, probably 25 feet away, maybe 30. Quite possibly the ugliest mockingbird I've ever seen. This is a 260 millimeter shot of my stump perch, which is right on the handrail of my back porch, 1/200th f6.3 and ISO 560. I have the top of the stump perch hollowed out, and I put bird seed in it, and it brings birds and other things right to me. And gosh, this mockingbird looks really sad when it's soaking wet like that. Here's a northern cardinal on another one of my perches. Just out of the frame below here is a pile of bird seed, and he is eating it. This is probably not the same male northern mockingbird as earlier because he doesn't have a patch right here with feathers missing. I've got lots of mockingbirds around. This is 1/200th of a second f6, ISO 900, 430 millimeters, right there on the back porch. So this morning with my Z6, I'm using autofocus continuous, single point, just trying to put that single point myself on the eye of the bird. I have it as a default, not directly in the middle of the screen, but about 2 or 3 clicks up, so I can get that in the middle of the screen and then crop to compose. And I'm shooting automatic ISO, wide open at 5.6, 6, or 6.3, depending on how many millimeters I use. I'm using the electronic shutter, which they call it the silent shutter on the old Nikon Z6, and it's working pretty well. Really happy with this lens, this 180 to 600. Just really like this lens. Kind of makes me want to buy a Nikon Z8 to go with this lens, because right now, even though I'm able to get my Z50 and my Z6 to work pretty well for bird photography, I'd really like to have something with a stacked sensor and really good bird eye detect autofocus, which my Z50 and my Z6 do not have. I went a little while with no activity, and then I got a soaking wet mockingbird picture in the background tree, the Leland cypress that's further away. You can always tell when they're in the Leland cypress because I'm at the full millimeters of whatever lens I'm using, 600 today. Most of my shots of the birds actually on the railing are in the 300 to 400 millimeter range. Here's the northern mockingbird in the Leland cypress perch, probably 25 feet away from my camera, 1/250th now. 600 millimeters wide open at 6.3 and ISO 1400. I like the way the main trunks, there's probably 3 of them in that Leland cypress. I like the way they look in the background of this shot. And it's another "the struggle is real" shot. What a beautifully ugly bird is this northern mockingbird when it is soaking wet. I just bagged a Carolina chickadee, which is really small, especially for a full frame camera with only 24 megapixels and that far away, but I think it's going to be an acceptable picture. And I also got a northern cardinal, both of those in the background perch, the Leland cypress way in the background, not on the porch. I could fill the frame with a Carolina chickadee on the porch, but it was a lot further away. It's still raining in this chickadee shot, but the chickadee doesn't seem nearly as soaking wet as the other birds. It's another shot at 1/250th, 600 millimeters, 6.3, ISO 720, and this is also in the Leland cypress. I had to crop this one quite a bit and still leave the bird relatively small in the frame to get this extra small bird at that distance. But I kind of like the shot. Here's another male northern cardinal. I think this could be the same one as the first one. The molting area is right here. It's kind of hard to see it in this shot, but I think this is the same bird as the first bird. And you can see raindrops are still falling. This is 600 millimeters, f6.3, 1/250th, and only 400 ISO for this one. Beautiful bird, the northern cardinal. It's always a treat when the chipmunk stops by while I'm out here with the camera. I got a photograph of one with a mouthful of my bird seed. There's the chipmunk up on the stump perch, as I like to call it, eating some bird seed. Got his jaws just packed full of bird seeds in this shot. And this is 390 millimeters, 1/400th of a second now, f6 and ISO 400. And if you like the chipmunk, stay tuned. I've got a little video of him wandering around on the porch at the very end of this video. Had a quick visit from a tufted titmouse, and I caught a photograph of it with a huge nut in its mouth, which I think might be pretty cool. There's the tufted titmouse on one of my perches there on the back porch, enjoying some of the nut and berry bird seed that I like to use so much. And this tufted titmouse doesn't have as much color. Sometimes they'll have a little more color than this. Still beautiful though, and I like the way this shot turned out. What a mouthful. This is 390 millimeters f6, 1/400th of a second, and ISO 560. The male house finch showed up for a little bit, and I got a shot of it. Here's a 600 millimeter shot of this male house finch, 1/400th of a second, ISO 1800, wide open at 6.3. The males have the red color, and the females look just like this, except they don't have any red color to them. Just a beautiful little bird, and we have lots and lots, almost too many of these around the house. Thanks for joining me and my Walmart bag covered 180 to 600 over here for this quick morning of very rainy bird photography. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, reach down, hit the thumbs up button. That helps me out a bunch. If you want to see some more stuff along these lines, subscribe and hit the bell. And as always, I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye-bye.